While we sleep, the guardians of the night take to the streets, having said goodbye to those they love. Each other knowing they may never say these words again, they face the evil that we run from. They dedicate their lives to those that would hate them because they wear the badge. They wear the badge not for the glory or recognition, but because they were born to honor the thin blue line. This is the LEO First Podcast. We'll talk to the men and women in law enforcement, those that have retired, and anyone who's impacted by law enforcement. We'll peel back the curtain, and you'll get the real stories. The good, the bad, and the ugly. Every law enforcement officer has a story to tell. Get ready to hear from the men and women who put their lives on the line every day for their communities and their country. Welcome to the LEO First Podcast. Now, here's your host, Michael Laidler.
Hey everybody, it's Michael Laidler, your host of the LEO First Podcast, and we are coming to you today with an amazing guest. I met him through LinkedIn, and you guys know I always meet my guests through LinkedIn. A couple more through Instagram, but we'll see how that goes. And as I read some of his bio, it intrigued me very quickly. One is because he's an author. You know, I'm an author too. His book, Training for the Fight, which can be found on Amazon, Target, Barnes and Nobles, anywhere. It's something I would check out. And I will tell you guys out of full transparency, I have not bought it yet, but I did promise our guests that once we end this, and I'll send proof if anybody wants it, I'm going to go ahead and buy it and then share it with you guys if y'all need to. But without getting too much further into my own rambling that I love to do, I'm going to jump right into introducing our guest, who's Chris Hoyer. He is a retired law enforcement officer of 20 years. He does public speaking. He's on similar stages as I am and hope to be. And he's really trying to spread a message about what he has going on and some of the things that he's been through. So, Chris, tell us about you.
Thanks, Michael. So, you covered most of it. Retired officer, 20 years and 64 days, as a matter of fact, and been gone for 6 years. And I got hired on in 97 back in Arizona. I'm out in San Diego now, which is crazy because nobody moves to California. My fiance and I actually moved out here almost together. And it's just been fantastic ever since we got together, and life's been great ever since. So
let's get right into this book, because a lot of people strive to be an author. A lot of people have aspirations to publish something of their own, and the fact that you've done it, and I looked Amazon, you already have nearly 100 reviews. Obviously, it's been fairly successful for you. What was like your driving force for pushing out your own book?
it was never supposed to be anything more than me just creating my own memoirs, if you will. It was unfortunately, it was born out of an ambush, a tragedy. A buddy of mine was killed back in 2016, and about a year or so after this happened, I was off. I was still kind of recovering and stuff, and I was supposed to go meet some friends up north, up in Arizona. And I woke up at about 2 o'clock in the morning and just got inspired to start writing. And before I knew it, I started writing the first chapter, which wasn't supposed to be an actual book. It was me just getting stuff out of my system, which was incredibly cathartic too, by the way. And before I knew it, I had like 1,000 pages. The thing just wrote itself. I couldn't believe it. I'm like, what just happened here? I mean, it was probably about a year, maybe or so later. I've got all these pages, so I started emailing it to my buddies, and I'm like, "Hey, what do you guys think of this?" And I had some really good responses, and just because of a God moment, I met my now fiance. We're getting married in 4 days, by the way.
Congratulations!
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. She came in and she read the first page or so, and she sends me a text message. She goes, "All right. Quit sending these to your friends. I'm going to make this a real book." And because she's a professional editor and author herself, we, in the process of doing the book, she did a phenomenal job of getting it to where it needs to be, as far as the editing and making it, very easy to read for especially cops with short attention spans. But She also walked me through the publishing process and getting the ISBN number and all these kinds of things, which I would have never figured out in a million years. If it had been up to me, it'd probably still be sitting on my queue on my laptop, but it was amazing. So I give her more credit than I did because she did the hard work. All I did was write the stories, which wasn't really that hard for me to do, but she did the hard work and got it to where it needs to be. So
All right, so there are two things I want to touch on. First, you use a word called cathartic. I don't know what that means, but I'm gonna say writing a book is therapeutic. As soon as you said cathartic, I was thinking to myself, what is he talking about? Like, there's too many syllables, too many different letters in there. Like something doesn't add up. But
right.
Chris, I'm in the same boat as you. I've told people who have struggled with actually putting their words on paper or having the fear of just writing a book. I was like, guys, you don't realize how therapeutic it is. Like putting your words on paper and expressing what has happened to you. It's different. Like it really changes how you look at your own life, because once you write it, you go back, you're like, I went through this and I survived.
Yeah.
That's a whole nother story in itself that people don't understand. And then the second part to what I was listening to was you had a tribe, you had a circle of trusted people. You didn't just take a concept and go run with it, and not with your fiance, with other fellow law enforcement officers to actually see if it was applicable to being helpful to people. Because sometimes, and I've heard this in different settings, sometimes we just write books that we don't know if it's going to help. But as soon as you hear one other person say, you know what, that book can really help somebody out, then for me, that's a game changer. So the fact that you had not just a fiance that was very supportive, I mean, her being an author and an editor, that can be very supportive of what you're trying to do in this area. But then on top of that, having a group of friends, an inner circle of people that can influence you in that way to keep pushing, like just takes that to a whole new level. So you mentioned an ambush. I'm guessing you wrote about it in your book. Did you want to shed a little bit of light on that, on how that was one of the driving forces in what was going on with you and kind of what inspired you from that situation to write the book?
Yeah, it was I mean the basic of the story is it's a garden variety radio call, no big deal. I had 18 years on with my department at the time, and 16 of those years on a specialty. Actually, I lied, 14 years on a specialty squad. So we're kind of like a high speed, proactive kind of thing, whatever. And we get out there, and I'm the first one there. I'm the scout. I'm putting out information, whatever we got going on. And I remember I was watching that house for 13 minutes by myself, which is very huge to the story later on. So watching the house, the troops start to rally, and my buddy Dave Glasser pulls up. And what I didn't know was, without giving away too much of the story, was where the guy was on the scene and ambushed Dave, fired 3 rounds, shot and killed Dave, fired 3 rounds at me and missed. And so now you can clearly see where 13 minutes watching the house, not knowing where the guy was, he's able to get a jump on us and kill my friend. And then Dave shot at 3 times and killed. I'm shot at 3 times and survived. So you can see where the complex post-traumatic stress survivor's guilt is starting to build for me. And going back to the actual book itself, Natalie, my fiance, says it all the time. She goes, writing that book is what pretty much saved your life, in my opinion. She didn't know me as a cop back in the day. And listening to my story, she goes, I really can't picture you as a, knock down, drag out, kick ass kind of a cop on the street, because I'm kind of this laid back California guy now. And I've always been that way. Mm-hmm. But obviously with that story, and this is how I explain it to folks that don't understand it. 4.5 seconds, my buddy's killed. I got to put 22 rounds of rifle into this guy, and he's trying to kill me at the same time. If that doesn't change your life, then something's way off with you already, which it was, of course, because, I mean, who gets paid to get shot at? Of course we do, but that was pretty much the beginning of the story, if you will, and then it just kind of expanded from there. So
let's go back to what you just mentioned about rounds coming down range at you versus you putting them down. How many actually came out at you that you can remember at least?
He fired 3 at me for sure. Yeah.
That is so. One of the things I talked about on a podcast I just did with Michael Suguru was the realities of being in a officer involved shooting. Like I've been fortunate in going on 20 years of law enforcement that I've never been in one. And I can tell you most of us hope we never get into one. And exactly. And the fact that you're able to sit here and talk about it and explain it, like it's a whole nother story. Nothing Mike and I talked about on that podcast was how someone feels during and after a shooting. And whether you take someone's life or not, it's gonna impact everybody differently. And I know recently we talked about, or we saw in the news, people critiqued Secret Service on what they did during the Trump attempted assassination, and everybody has their opinions. But until you're in that situation, you really don't know. And even if you are, you can have 5 people around you, and each person will handle the situation slightly different. So trying to project how someone is going to emotionally respond is a bad idea. And understanding that people are people, I think that's important. And the fact that, once again, I'm just so impressed that you're able to talk about it and explain it, because we know people freeze up, and people sometimes they will never talk about any issues that come from a major incident like that. And the fact that you are able to do it, it's just a blessing to be able to have that kind of mindset to say, you know what, I'm going to not only talk about it, I'm going to write about it, and I'm going to keep offering to people to take them to the next level.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's unfortunate too, because with the public speaking stuff, I talk about how I went from being fat, dumb, and happy all the way up to just completely locked up. I mean, total brain fog, the whole thing. But my other big issue was that, and it sounds kind of arrogant to say it this way, and it's trying to be anything but that, but I was involved with 3 other shootings up until that point, and I had that mindset of, when the target turns, raise and fire 2 rounds, wait for the investigators and the pizzas, right? It's no big deal. And then, and I mean, it was, don't get me wrong. I mean, those 3 other ones were a whole nother complete story, of course, all in their own right. But, I had this mindset of, if I put all these rounds down range, I should be good to go. And then when the guy starts shooting back at me, I had no plan for that. I'm like, wait a second. I'm a tactical instructor. I mean, I'm a rifle instructor and do all these great things. And I thought, well, shit, I'm good to go. I can handle this. And then when the guy started shooting back at me, I'm like, wait a second. We didn't talk about this in the brochure. How do you handle this, right? And I don't have any time to figure this out. I've got to react now, or I'm going to die. And that was hard to overcome that too, because that fear. I don't care how much of a stud you think you are, because I thought I was 10 feet tall. Look at me, Yeah, I came that close to dying. That messes with your brain. It does, and it still does to this day a little bit. So, but.
I mean, people talk about near life or near death experiences all the time. And you see a lot of people do change when they go through situations kind of like yours or whatever. I mean, it could be a bad car crash. It could be whatever scope you want to make it. But when you see death knocking on the door, you don't know if it's coming to say hi or bye. Regardless, you just want to get away from it. You don't want to sit there and see what death was trying to say to you. So the fact that, once again, it's hard to, like you said, when the rounds are coming back, first, you don't know. We always say bullets go where they go. Like, that's their bullets are more dangerous than guns. And people are like, what do you mean? Well, you can have a gun. If there's no bullets in it, you can't do anything. So, and bullets don't tell you where they're going. You have an idea, but you think you have an idea where they're going to stop and what direction they're going to go in. But at any point, they can hit an unattended target. And when that can happen, you just don't know. So you're right. Just this time, like you said, although you had all the prior shootings before that, the time that it comes back at you is literally different. Like, you were.
I'll tell you what. The point on that is really strange for me, because I've been shot at several times over, and it's one of those things most of the time where you don't know where they're coming from. You're like, okay, well, that's pretty uncomfortable, and you don't like it, but you realize there's nothing you can do about it. There's no follow up and whatever else. But when you see a guy point a gun at you and pull the trigger, that's a whole different dynamic. You're like, whoa, hey, this guy's really trying to kill me. Whoa. Again, it's on the front of the brochure, but not so much, so.
Well, our time has been great, and I really enjoyed talking about it. Like I tell people all the time, I don't know where the conversation's going, but I'm very happy that we were able to get into your book. Once again, folks that don't know, go to Amazon, Target, Barnes & Nobles. There's a paper or a printed copy and Audible. When that day comes, Training for the Fight, go grab it. Chris, if people are looking for you, where's the best place for them to find you?
Email is probably the best thing. Chris Hoyer 46 at Gmail. You're welcome to post that on your thing there. And I always respond to all emails. And if people are struggling, they got questions, hey, what about this and what about that? I welcome all that, because now I want to save the world internally, because I did 20 years of external saving. Now I want to go the other direction, so.
Yeah, that's amazing. And that's a gift in its own. Any final words?
I appreciate your time very much, and hopefully we'll do this again and pick it up in another 15 or 20 minutes and answer more questions for your hopefully very intrigued listeners. So, like I said, thank you very much, and you stay safe out there yourself, my friend. So.
I appreciate that. And for folks, I hope you guys heard something that he said. We are lowering the episode length because we believe that it will create more views, and obviously, the more views we get, the more we can share this message. But something else that I really want to harp on is when you guys have questions, or you guys want something, or you're curious about one of the guests, reach out to me. We can always bring them back on, or bring her back on, because there might be something you're going through in your life right now, or maybe you're just on the outside looking in and you're like, man, maybe Chris can give me the answer. Send it to me. Send it to me through LinkedIn, Instagram. You probably have my email. Reach out to me via website. Obviously, I'm going to put Chris's email. Ask us the question, guys. There's no question that's too stupid. And I know people say there might be, but if you're thinking about it, at least let us give you an answer for it. We may not have the right one, but I know if Chris is, I feel like he's just like me. We can at least lead you in the right direction. So once again, guys, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for being a supporter of this show. If you guys need anything, reach out. If not, you guys be safe.
You've been listening to the LEO First Podcast. Michael has been in law enforcement since 2005. He's worked for 3 law enforcement agencies in 3 different states. He's a professional speaker who travels the country teaching about leadership development and self-awareness. And he's the author of a book called Greatness Beyond the Badge: The 3 Key Principles for Self-Awareness. It's Michael's passion to bring law enforcement members' stories to the front, so you get the real and raw take. We hope you've enjoyed the show. Make sure to like, rate, and review. And we'll be back soon. But in the meantime, hook up with Michael on YouTube, Instagram, and LinkedIn at Michael Laidler, on Twitter at Michael A. Laidler, on Facebook at Michael Laidler Leadership. Send an email to michael@michaellaidler.com and hit the website at michaellaidler.com. See you next time on the LEO First Podcast.